This is step one of my lino cut, and I've drawn with the biro pen my design onto my lino. Now I actually did the thing where I put the tools down and drew around them to get the outline, and then I drew in extra details like this. I'm just going to put in some of these highlights here because I think that's going to be quite nice to actually cut out. And I might put in a highlight down this part here. Now I've gone for this being an overlapping bit here, and I've gone for quite a dynamic composition. By dynamic composition, I've got elements leaving the edges and coming in off the side, and I've got this diagonal coming here, and I'm framing it with this one. So I'm trying to kind of create a composition that kind of flows. I'm going to make a multiple colour print of this. So when I'm making my first cuts, I'm really thinking that that's going to be the white of the page. So what I don't want to do is cut out too much in the first stage. I'm only going to cut out what's going to be white. So that's really going to be these kind of highlighted areas here. And actually, probably I'll cut out some highlighted areas here as well. Now the first colour that I'm going to use for doing my print, I'm going to do 3 colours, and I'm going to do, let me think, probably yellow and blue, and that'll give me a kind of greeny colour, and then maybe a sort of black or a brown. But we'll see how the colours are looking when it gets to the 2 colour one. So the first cuts I'm going to make are going to be the white. So this is a lino cutting tool, and obviously it's a sharp tool for cutting through the lino, so you have to be very careful with it. There are a variety of different blade types, which are for more fine work and for more skippy work. Now I'm going to be doing quite sort of fine work, so I'm going to pick out quite a nice fine little blade, and this is me picking out the parts of my print that are actually going to be quite like the look of that one, that are actually going to be white. Now when you're cutting, it's really important to be safe and not actually cut into your hand, because if you cut into your hand like that and you slip, you could do yourself some serious damage. And I've actually seen people do silly things like that, so we don't want to be causing ourselves any physical harm. So what I'm going to do just now is I'm holding the tool, and I don't want to go too deeply into the lino as well. I want to just take out some nice little bits. I'm looking at my tools here and I'm thinking about where would the highlights actually be. What do I want to be highlighted in white? So I'm just going to take out all the little bits where I'm thinking, yeah, that would be quite nice to have a little white bit here. So I'm not cutting out lots and lots and lots, and I'm trying not to go too deep. If you go too deep when you're cutting, you actually gouge out far more lino than you really want to remove. You only really want to remove a little bit of the surface of the lino. You're not wanting to go really in deep. Okay, and you notice that I'm keeping my hands behind the lino, and I move myself a bit, or I move the lino about, rather than then suddenly cutting into my hands. And I hold the lino with this hand here, keeping it nice and firm so that it doesn't spin away from me. I'm just going to put in some of these little catch lights here. Now the good thing about drawing the initial lino design using the biro pen is that the biro actually is quite resilient to being washed, because we're going to be removing the ink and washing it as the printing process goes on. So we do want to have the biro pen remain there once we've washed through the lino. Now I'm wanting this to show behind here, so we've got an overlap. So I'm just going to go in here with this highlight underneath. And I've got these little highlights here to put in. And it's almost like the last thing that we did, wasn't it? When we did the painting, we put the highlights in at the very, very end. So we're almost doing the opposite here. We're beginning to put the highlights in at the very beginning of the process of making our print. Let's put in this one here. And this is just a nice little process. So I'm going to stop here and hopefully join you at the first stage of printing. Okay, so I've got my lino print and I've already cut out my first stage here, and everything I've cut out is going to be the white. I'm going to print with the yellow ink. Now I apologise for the noise outside. I'm going to put out a little bit of ink and then I'm going to show you how to roll it. Okay, so I've rolled out a little kind of thin layer of ink, and what I'm going to do is just going to roll it out nice and flat. When we're doing our lino, we want our ink to be lovely and flat. Now you can see here that I'm printing in the yellow. You always start with the lightest colour first when you're doing a multiple colour lino print. Now it should be nice and thin like that. Hear that noise? Isn't that lovely? Now I'm not talking about the lovely noise of children playing outside. I'm talking about the lovely noise of the roller on ink. Okay, so I'm going to put the ink onto the plate, the lino plate, and I'm trying to go nice and evenly as I'm putting the ink on. Taking it from my reservoir here, which is lovely and flat, and I'm putting it onto my lino over here. Now as you can see, when I'm putting my lino on, I actually push down onto the roller with my other hand, and that just helps apply a little bit more pressure. I try and get right into those corners. Okay, getting it all covered in the ink. I want to have a really nice even print. Now I've got some little spots here that aren't taking the ink too well, and that probably means there's a little bit of grease or grime in those bits. So next time I'm doing my print, because I'm going to do 4 in yellow, and that just gives me a little print series of 4 prints. You always print in multiples, you never just do one. So for my next print, I'm actually going to do a little bit of tidy cleanup. Now notice that I've got a little bit of lino sticking here, so I'm just going to pull that out and go back over, building up my ink. Okay, so that's me got my ink. I'm just going to show you how to print. So I'm printing onto white A4 paper, and I'm going to be doing a multiple layer print. So what I'm going to do is put this down first, and I'm going to put the paper on, and I'm going to use a clean ruler here, and again I'm applying pressure with my other hand to really push down the print so that it prints really, really well. And the other thing that I do if I'm printing by hand is I actually use the back of the lino tool to burnish the ink right into the paper, and this just gets those bits that perhaps haven't been caught by the rolling. Now you can obviously also print using the press that you use to make your collagraphs, but I wanted to show you just a technique for using in case you're at home and you buy yourself a little roller, which are relatively inexpensive, and then you could do printmaking while you're at home. I've actually got a little set of printmaking rollers and inks that I use at home. Okay, now what I'm going to do just now is I'm going to mark with pencil some little marks on the corner of this print. Now you can see this has already got a print on it. This lino is double-sided, and you can use both sides of the lino to do different prints, and that way it's just a little bit more economical. Okay, so I'm putting these marks at the corner because this is a multiple colour print and I want to be able to register up the next print. Okay, so you can see this is on the yellow here. It's printed out relatively well, apart from these little spots that I think are greasy. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to wash this off, okay, wash the ink off, and I'm going to clean it so that when I do my next yellow pool, it'll be lovely and non-greasy. But that's the first stage of doing a multiple colour lino print.